All right, good evening, everybody, at the Town Council Joint Meeting of Planning and Development Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, 6 p.m. here in the Veterans Room. Give my pen out.
Do you need one?
No, found it, thank you. All right, roll call, agenda item number 1. Catherine?
Here.
Dee Dee?
Here.
And Dave. Lazo's excuse. Huh?
He's been.
No, he's been here. He actually was pouring. He was gonna make yesterday, but it had there was some today he's pouring a bunch of concrete, so he thought he'd be yesterday. Let's see here. Dow, absent. All right. We have quorum. Agenda item number 2, consider and accept the planning and development meeting minutes of January 4th, 2023. Very well.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or questioning on it?
Everything looked good.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? 3-0. Number 3, discuss review applying for the Community Development Block Grant Mini Entitlement fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 for $1.65 million for a housing rehab, commercial rehab, code enforcement, and a planning activity. Entertain a motion to town council approval and authorize the town manager to sign all related documents.
So moved.
Okay? Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, Ms. Dean?
So this is a double our money this application round. They combined the 22 and 23 because we are also log jammed with our existing grant years right now, trying to get construction projects done. We are in the midst of fiscal year 20 West Street, fiscal year 21 will be River Crane Street. We haven't even started that. So I think it was a smart move on the state's part to do this. We had 3 public hearings. Thanks to Councilor Steves, we had representation from South Virginia News and an article back on November 3rd. We also had comment from Councilor Steves at a town council meeting that he felt like this year we did a better job of public participation than he had seen in a long time. We're applying for March 3rd. So hopefully you will approve this. Pretty straightforward.
Any questions for you?
What's Morris Street? It says OSRP to include Morris Street?
Yes, and one of the initial meetings, October 26th public hearing, we talked about parks and we were going to talk about parks and playground, but the bulk of the meeting ended up being about housing rehab. Mike Brunel was at that meeting, the rec director, and was going to suggest a couple of different parks projects, one being West Street drainage, another being Morris Street drainage, another being whether to do any work on more than that on the Morris Street field. At the next public hearing, we talked about maybe the best thing to do based on the feedback we've had in previous years' town council meetings is to have a high-level prioritization plan of all of the parks. We have an existing open space and recreation plan that expires now, and we need to update it either way. And so what we're doing is a larger scope than your traditional open space recreation plan. We're asking for within it to review the best use for the community center and the property there in the context of all of the parks and playgrounds, and then prioritize our maintenance and our capital projects, or help us taking into consideration what the rec director's priorities are, and also building into that plan. The newest development is the fire station's request for us to look at helping with a building for storage that would have bathrooms and concession window adjacent to McCann Fields on the new fire station property. And then I've also talked to Phil Harding at DPW and have asked if we should also evaluate for tree cutting townwide, because year over year I heard from Heather that they don't have enough money for trees. And part of the open space recreation plan is you're looking at conservation and you're looking at, I'm not sure if this is traditional in an open space and recreation plan, but I thought it was a good way to try to address that through some expertise.
Was that a grant that cut trees on East Main Street, or is that part of their project going on down
It's at the apartments. And I think they did the trees.
Yeah, it must have been,
there? Because they went all the way to the gas station, so I figured it had to be the AO.
yeah.
I was just curious.
We have very little money in our tree cutting budget relative to the amount of work we tend to need every year. And what is that number? None of us really know, we're not tree experts, right?
Does Mass Electric still come around and cut back for their wires?
Under some circumstances,
Yes,
yeah.
in some areas.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, through you. I was at the meeting when we were discussing this, and so it's been a while. I thought that if my memory serves me, I thought we were trying to figure out if more residents in town could apply for that housing rehab, because there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there was like a restriction on who could get it. They had to live in a certain area, and many of the residents who came to the meeting
Right.
asked if we could expand it to the entire town. So did that happen?
I thought that was the plan, yeah, that you were gonna do it for town-wide based on income.
Steve.
Based on feedback, went back to DHCD. I was simultaneously getting audited by DHCD and had my program rep on site to talk to them about the interest from the town in making it town-wide, even though I had initially advocated it for it to be in the highest percentage low moderate income census tract, which is that Crane's main target area. And they said it's actually more common for towns to do it town-wide. And sometimes you choose a priority, like for septics or for elderly but what we chose was to do on a first come, first served basis for any low moderate income that's eligible. In owner occupied homes.
Right.
So single family or owner occupied of no more than 4 units.
Are there certain restrictions? that-
Councilor Marquetti, just,
No, that's all right. I'll let him talk and then I'll talk. It's okay.
Sorry.
Pretty loose here, however you want to do it.
okay.
You said it when you said loose.
Who?
No, you said loose.
I got what he said, yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, Councilor Marquetti.
Okay, I
Thank
just
you.
want to know, are we going to let the residents know that this is available to everyone? Should be broadcast far and wide. It's first come, first served, because a lot of people don't even know about some of these programs that are going on. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's like a punch in the gut for me because of course we would. And
Okay.
And,
I'm trying to punch in
and
the
that's
gut.
putting the cart way before the horse, because chances are, first we need to be awarded, and within the award, we'll find out if there's any special conditions, whether what we applied for is correct. I don't want to mislead or create expectations, and it's not as if this is a large chunk of change. Unfortunately, $400,000, $500,000 is only going to get us maybe 12 to 15 projects. What happens is you go in for $35,000 for a project, and then if there's lead that needs to be dealt with, it's a lead abatement project that allows you to go up to $45,000. It's not a lot of work, and it's not going to be a lot of projects, unfortunately. So, I'd hate for there to be a mad dash to the front door, and then people be disappointed.
I believe a few years ago, this is why they kind of swayed away from the housing projects, right? The loans?
I think that part of it, when Rosemary came in, she felt like there were better potential uses of funds on large infrastructure projects where you could leverage funds.
Yeah.
And that the benefit was that you didn't have to, it wasn't as labor intensive for the office.
Thank you. Councilor Steves.
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking follow up. What kinds of projects can you use this for?
It's for code enforcement and safety. So it cannot be for aesthetics, but it can be for, potential, say you have rot that might lead to wet, which might lead to sanitarium issues, right, or sanitation code issues, or building code issues. So as long as it's meeting either of those two priorities, then we can pay for it.
Yeah.
In the
Senior.
event we need all the parameters set forth by the grant, is it like a loan to the homeowners? So in the event that if they sell, say 2 years afterwards, they would have to pay the loan back, And is it a type of loan grant that as the years progress, it goes away at no charge? Is that how it works?
Correct. And the difference this time around, we've been advised by DHC to instead, we used to forgive a percentage every 3 years, 20% every 3 years for a 15-year span. They would like to see us forgive every year a chunk of it, so that no one's held up wanting to sell, you know, or losing out if they want to sell. So I thought that was a great recommendation. So it's all about looking out for our residents. You know, we don't want to, we've talked a lot about in public hearings, striking a balance between serving our residents and avoiding being taken advantage of, right? So you don't want to see people do upgrades to their homes for the sole purpose of selling and then building, you know, that equity into their pocket. So we want to see it for the purpose of people staying in their homes, but we don't want to straddle them. If they choose to sell, by all means, that 1/15, 2/15, whatever amount is forgiven. And then with regards to elderly, DHCD recommended at that time that we forgive everyone over 80 years old flat out, which I thought
Right.
was, or they said choose an age, but do look out for your elders. And so we, at that time, back in November, came to the town council and approved all existing housing rehab for people over 80, for giving them sight unseen, and then for those going forward, we'll forgive them. So that'll be a good service to our seniors.
Let me continue.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I think some of the comment that I've heard over the last few months is the fact that with the housing rehabilitation potential, that a lot of the people got upset with the fact that multiple family, they're 4 family for instance, is a lot of it is there to be for profit. You know, people own the multiple families, some are, you know, single family, I mean, 2 families, okay. I guess that's what concerns a lot of people is why are we subsidizing somebody that's doing housing for profit, even though it's owner occupied? I had a 3-family and I had a 3-family because it helped pay for my home so I could live rent-free. And I guess that was a lot of concern of the people. Is that taken into consideration too?
So if I may, through you, Chair, so back to the basics, you have to be low, moderate income.
Okay.
And so first you meet that eligibility criteria. And so if someone is low, moderate income, they do own a 4-family that needs upgrades for the sake of them or low-income residents, you have to make sure at least 51% of the units are low, moderate income also, so that you know you're benefiting your low, moderate income residents. And you have to make sure your fair housing, you have to make sure that you keep your rent at the fair market rate, the low, moderate income fair housing rate every year until your loan is
A
forgiven.
lot going on with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Catherine.
Catherine?
I was just wondering if any of that money could help, like elderly or anyone who's disabled to have a wheelchair ramp installed?
If I may through you, Chair. So part of my job all the time, always, is providing information about where people can go to get things like that. So we currently have a list of family resources. We would probably direct somebody who wanted money for something like that to RCAP or to other buckets of money that are already out there.
Okay.
Yeah. So we want to make sure we stretch all of our regional funds as far as possible.
Thank you.
And I couldn't find the word. It's not the fair housing. It's the affordable housing rate, whatever it is.
Right. Okay.
Not having words.
Dee Dee,
I'm all set.
you all set? Any other questions, discussion? Thank you again. All those in favor? Opposed? 3-0. Number 4, discuss, review, rescinding agenda item number 16 from the town council meeting on November 11th, or November 7th, 2022. Vote to allow the Economic Development and Planning Department to accept the lowest quote to furnish and install 2 awnings at 300 Main Street for not more than $10,814, pending approval from the Massachusetts Historical Commission, and authorize town manager to sign all related documents. Entertain a motion of the town council to rescind this. Go ahead. I didn't know the next one would be different. You want to talk about? Oh, all those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Make the motion.
Take that back. Motion? Got it. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Dean. I was done. I wouldn't let anybody speak. You're done.
So these two are related. Denise Clements had mentioned when I had that ARPA agenda item recently, I had asked within the motion that we rescind a previous motion, and she pointed out that according to proper
Yeah.
legislation, we need to, was it Robert's rules? Okay, so according to Robert's rules, we needed to rescind the motion, and you need to spell out exactly what that motion is, and then in a different agenda item, bring up the other item.
And she was correct.
So
Well, it's cleaner
I
that way.
I had said
Yeah.
I thought that was a matter of opinion, but then talking with Counselor Adams, he agreed, and so this is a similar motion where I need to rescind that prior agenda item and have you approve the next one. When I came to you in November, in November,
November.
I had said, in an effort to get these done as quickly as possible, please approve the lowest quote between the two, and I was sure that one was gonna come in at least at the 10,000 or less. And unfortunately, then when I went out for formal quotes, I did not get that number. And so at this point, I'm asking, and it's all, again, CDBG funds, we have the money, it's not a big deal, but I'm just asking for us to do this correctly.
Okay. You have any questions? Anyone? Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, to get this straight, is this the third change in the cost of this, or the second change?
If I may, three,
Yeah.
second,
It's the second change on these awnings. So this is something, when we passed the 10,000, that was the original, or that was the second change?
that was the original, and that was it was a cost estimate I'd been given. Cost estimates are not quotes, they're not formal quotes. You know, we go out to these vendors and say, give us what you think is a cost estimate, so we know where it falls within the procurement charts. Is it under 10,000? Is it over 10,000? So we knew this was over 10,000. I needed to go out I needed to solicit 3 formal quotes of identical language and then see what came back. What I just presumptuously assumed we would get the same cost estimate, and unfortunately, we didn't. And we are definitely at their, you know, we're in an awkward position where we need to spend these funds by March 3rd.
Okay. Is it? Go ahead, Councilor Marquetti.
Okay, the original motion was for not more than 10,800, but you weren't sure that that's what it was gonna be, so now it's 13,000. So, do you feel, my only question is, you must really feel that improving that building down there is really gonna help economic development, because it seems like we are doing a lot down there. So is that the feeling, that building is really the key?
I agree. I do. I think so.
All right.
Personally, but Ms.
If I
Dean.
may through you, the way these projects are chosen, we have applicants come in. I had a list of probably 7 or 8 applicants. We go down, we drill down to our downtown slum-like survey and what the buildings were rated at the time that we did the survey. The ones that come in as poor or fair are the ones that we're gonna target. So we wanted to target 44 Hamilton, but we could not get a contractor to bid on that building, and so we never got it done. We definitely wanted to do 111 Central, and it works out that they're also investing at the same time. 53 Central Pizza. That one, you know, we feel strongly because it's connected to our already invested in Central Street parking lot. Anything we can do to beautify that and improve it, that works in our favor. 22 Hamilton, the other one that we invested in, that one was definitely rated as a fair or poor. So that is the basis.
If you don't mind, I personally think it is, because that building has been vacant for, heck, what? More than 7 years, 8 years, and there was a lot of promise, and we actually gave money to the individual that owned it. You know the history behind that whole issue, you know. And I see it actually, they're building inside. You and I actually walked through that building a while back, and it was just their beginning. If you get to go walk through it now, it's amazing the investment they're putting in. They're actually building their own beams. They're taking raw wood and actually building those big, huge beams by hand. And putting them up. Obviously, it looks great and all that, and we appreciate it. The fact is, you got a restaurant on the side, and hopefully that sprinkler system that we've approved to provide ARPA funds for through the economic development helps that whole area. You know, I think they've got a renter in there already, and then as far as the restaurant, they've already got somebody there as well. And I think it'll help quite a bit when the springtime. but I'm not naive to say, you know, the sprinkler system has to get put in. You know, we gave them the money, now it's time for them to install it. You know, I don't wait years or anything like that, but I don't know where it's at. That's my own personal view. I think that's a good cornerstone next to the bank, and hopefully that other vacant lot starts to get built shortly
It's really
after.
filling up fast with a lot of dirt and blocks, and I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I think, I don't want to, I shouldn't speak for the owners of that vacant lot, but I think they've agreed with Gabe to, and his son Johnny, to utilize that area as they're pulling it out, taking stuff out, dropping it, hauling it away when they need to haul it away. I think that's just a mutual agreement, while they're still working on the old water building for apartments by the Italian Club, and I believe that this is the next project for them, would be that vacant lot.
If I could just bring
I
it
don't know
back
where
to
dirt's
the,
coming from, but okay.
if I could just bring it back to the agenda item, 300 Main
Yeah.
Street, just to clarify, 300 is the.
Oh, I'm sorry, 300 Main Street.
Yeah, 300 is still their building, it's the one right on the other side of Stiles there. And so both of those buildings came in as fair or poor on the slum blight survey. And with regards to the ARPA funds for 111 Central.
Yeah, there's
Sprinklers,
111, I apologize.
In their defense, we're in the midst of getting a contract executed to be able to cut them a check to be able to go forward.
So my apologies, the 300, but yeah. He owns quite a few buildings down there, so I kind of wander over to the 111 all the time for some reason. Any other discussion? Anything else? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Number 4, we're to discuss, review, accepting the quote and entering into an agreement with the Graphic Unlimited to furnish and install 2 awnings at 300 Main Street for $13,100 and obtain a motion to the council for approval and authorize the town manager to sign all related documents. All right.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Dean?
I don't-
Kind
Are
of
there
talked about it
questions?
already. Any questions?
I know.
All those in favor? Opposed? 6, discuss reviewing entering into a contract for $2,000 in Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, CMRPC, to help complete the slums and blights survey needed for our CDBG application activity, commercial rehab, to be funded by ARPA funds. Entertain a motion to town council for approval and authorize town manager to sign all related documents.
Moved.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Dean?
So I want to thank the town council for their nimbleness to be able to consider this agenda item. So the ARPA meeting that this will be, the funds will be requested from, is at a future date. We brought this agenda item to you to be able to bring this to town council and then also approve the ARPA funds at that ARPA meeting and bring that to town council. Hopefully is all one motion,
We need to discuss that.
however it's approached.
Yeah, so,
But the goal of it is to be able to complete this slum blight survey that we need at the time of the application, March 3rd. And I just, when I think about this, I want to crawl under my desk. It's just like it's so mounting. And so in my desperation, I had 2 CMRPC staff help me with a couple of things and said, you know what, if I could get some money for you guys to actually do some real hours for me, this might make the difference. And so they're going to help me cross the finish line.
Councilor Steves.
So just clarify, so what exactly are they doing?
They will take all the surveys and map them.
Oh,
So, the findings of the Fairport Good Excellent, map them, then they will tally them to determine whether we meet the threshold of 25% slum blight, and then help me with the report.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a bulky report.
Any other discussion? With Councilor McKinney.
Thank you. On the page here of the contract, it says startup contract through March 30th. So it's just through March 30th, but you want to complete it before March 30th. Is that the difference in the dates?
They actually asked me if it would be beneficial for them to extend it out. Should there be any last response from DHCD that we need to respond to, or should there be any follow-up that, so I said, yes, keep the contract open like that, or forbid we needed them.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
That would be okay with the time frame.
Oh, that's our personal choice.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I thought you said it had to be done by March
the,
1st or something?
I'm sorry.
There's a lot of dates. Yeah, I got it, yeah.
No, that's all right. I just
Go ahead, Ms.
We
Dean.
have until March 3rd.
So, right, so they
It's okay.
understand,
Yeah, go ahead.
they understand the scope, the bulk of the scope is within the timeline, the 2-week timeline, and then they offered to just make it a longer contract should we need them after the fact.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Question real quick, it's an estimate of $2,000. Would you come back to ARPA if there was an increase in that?
Because I don't have time to go back, that's all.
Or no. If ARPA gives you the $2,000, all in the compensation portion, it says estimated at $2,000.
Oh,
So I didn't know if I don't care if it's $2,100. You have to go back to ARPA to get another $100 here and there.
Well, it does say not to exceed 15 hours too.
Just looking at the estimate. That's all I'm saying.
yeah.
That's all I'm looking at.
Um,
It's not a big deal. I'm just saying, would you have to come back? Do you think you'd have to come back, or you can find in your own budget to cover the cost?
We could probably find it within between.
Because it's not going to be that much more if it is.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So the intent here, I just wanted to let everyone know, ARPA has a meeting on Thursday and discussing this agenda item itself for the $2,000. And then the plan of attack, and I can talk to Ms. Dean afterwards, is to actually have two motions. One, to accept the funds from ARPA, kind of like when we do a transfer. Sometimes we do the transfer and then we go into another motion for it. And I just wanted to keep it cleaner, that's all.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Counselor Steves?
The only other observation is you might want to change Michael McCall's name on it, since by then, Charlie Burrow would be acting manager.
We can scratch that out if we like.
The manager's still here Monday night, so.
He's here all the way till Friday.
Right,
Whoever is
Next Friday. Okay. All right, any other discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? 3-0. 7, discuss review proposed Mass Works project at Southbridge Innovation Center being brought to the town by the Worcester Business Development Corporation and take any action thereof.
Make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Dean?
I don't have an opinion on this project. I just have a little bit of history. I know that when I came in, I learned that the town council had approved applying for a park grant for this similar project. And then when it was awarded and it came to town council, they rescinded it, or they did not approve it. And Denise Clements was the chair at the time. And so I'd like to learn from Denise why, what the sticking points were at that time to find out if there are things we still should be concerned about. The other piece of this that I know is when I finally got my hands on some of the material, I personally felt like the legal language inside there was a covenant of restrictions that wasn't strong enough in the town's favor, in my opinion. And with the vote from their side, they could basically take back the property that they were saying would be
That's
ours.
correct.
And so that would concern me, I've already brought that up, that language would need to be stronger or changed. But otherwise, I don't have an opinion. I think it would be the will of the town whether we wanted to go forward with this or not. And it's hard also because we don't have a DPW in place to be able to chime in about the details.
Councilor Steves?
As I recall also, one of the issues that came up with this particular project was the fact that they were trying to do work on roads that were not public roads, if I remember correctly. And that was one of the sticking points with the state as well. Because because essentially it ends up becoming a public-private partnership deal where we're doing all the work and they're getting all the benefit and we don't have the roads. So I think that was a huge sticking point for the council at the time. And how is this project changed since then? Has it? If at all?
I don't believe so. What I remember from the expression of interest that we did submit when I did finally step into the grants role, we submitted an expression of interest and they told us that the project wasn't spelled out clearly enough.
Right.
The budget wasn't clear what was Mass Works responsibility, what was future phase responsibility, and so that it needed a lot more fine tuning. So hopefully they've done that fine tuning if they were interested.
Was this? Go ahead.
Wait,
Mr. Chenier, go
is
ahead.
this the river? walk thing that they talked about.
So yeah.
If I remember during discussion, there was a lot of personal issues that came about for the killing of the project. And the biggest discussion, I believe at the time, was the fact that they were concerned that we were buying or getting into contaminated areas and dirt and those kind of things, and they kind of scared people into it.
I don't think it's in the same project.
There was
This
we'll be loose with this discussion.
No, I don't.
Is that the same project?
I don't think Gus is right. It's not the same.
I think this one involved, this is over the AL.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
AL.
both of
A
them.
big part of that, it involved, I mean, there was a bit of an issue originally when we were talking, because this was about the same, or shortly after, we were talking about doing that Riverside Park project. We had already nixed that
That was like,
before this came up.
right, didn't they get the grant for like,
But I don't
We
think
were
it was
looking at that,
works.
but we decided to nix it because part of it was because of contamination. But I think with this particular project, they were talking about doing some stuff with access to that pond, to Lansdale Pond. They were talking
Right.
about doing a whole bunch of work on the various roads within the AO complex. They were talking about doing some like bike trails along into the forest up on the side of the hill there. And some of those things, most of those things were supposed to be public access, but they weren't actually public property. And if I can remember correctly, there was some issue, because there were so many phases, as I recall, for this particular project, that there was some confusion over how, I think, if I remember correctly, there were three phases, if I remember correctly, where they were talking about doing a lot of lighting on some of the roads and some road work, and then some of the other public, like park activities. And I thought maybe a third phase involved building some of the buildings or something. It's been quite a while since I looked at this.
Was this 2018?
It might have been.
Okay.
I probably have the paperwork back, like buried in a file somewhere.
George, go
I
ahead.
kind of think there's like two projects that we're discussing about.
I think so.
And I think the one that Gus is talking about could possibly be with the incentive to make the place into the apartments at the.
So it was the original plan was to take that walk from the apartments
And
or
do
do a
walk,
river
right.
walk with kayaking, and that's still, with the
Correct.
bike trails in the back, everything, that's still part of the
Right.
master
And a
plan.
lot of that was private funding. And then the other thing that I'm talking about that council voted down, I believe they got a Mass Work grant of a considerable amount of money to develop the access to the pond, a totally different subject. And I believe that they had a state funding that
It's $190,000.
was money. Here you were gonna have like $200,000 if I
I
remember.
think I remember right.
And
400 for the park grant. I think.
yeah, it was. And I think it's not tied into the what you're talking about. I think that what you're talking about was what Chip Norton brought forward as an incentive to give the tax.
He was the same project where he was going to maintain all the work.
I think before that, maybe a couple of years before that, when Denise was on council as chairperson, they brought forward a grant, and there was a big discussion with Dirty Dirt, and that
It's
didn't
21E.
happen with what you're saying.
That
This
wasn't
is-
specific, no, that part wasn't specific to the Mass Works grant, that was to the Parks grant, that was the property, the problem is that we're talking about the same pieces of property.
Same piece
And
of
they were
property, different projects.
trying to do multiple projects on the same pieces of
Right,
property.
so I think it's, this here was,
They originally went through that process to do the small, like an acre side park,
the-
right on the rotary.
right,
And we nixed that because it didn't seem to make a lot of sense to us for the cost and potential risk for such a tiny piece of property.
well,
And
I
then,
have to look back.
so then he kind of reworked it and kind of took that same idea and wrapped it into the MassWorks project.
But
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
what, it wasn't
It
that,
got kind of confusing because there were so many things flying around.
isn't this project that he's proposed was gonna be private funding when he went to the town as an incentive to give him a tax? This is what I'm gonna do if you're gonna do. And
He's done that
he
too.
got the tax,
Yes.
he got the tax break for making the apartments affordable housing. And then he proposed within his facility, at his cost, I thought, of bike trails and doing those things, walking trails and those kind of things. That was what his group's money. And then I know he applied, I think, for MassWorks money to change the bridges and to change the entrance to the place. And again, it could be a different project that I'm talking about, but
I think there may be two masters.
Yeah, so, Mike, go ahead, Mike, just to see what you have to say, because
Oh, okay.
it could shed some light
So
here.
this is how I look at it. I don't mind helping him over there, but what happened was, for 2 years in a row, he applied for the MassWorks grant.
Right.
He did not fill out the paperwork
correct.
and he lost
That's
2 years in a row. MassWork grant is really our money.
It's our money,
They
yeah.
give the money to us.
Correct.
I think we should go for it, but we should have the right to decide what we want to use the money on. Because we didn't get those grants for 2 years in a row. That was our money that we didn't
Right.
get. So I would propose absolutely go for the money, but we should decide what we want to use it for. And I don't mind using it for the East Main Street project. That helps him out too.
But I thought we were getting masters.
Well,
We
are,
already
but
did.
Why can't we get more?
Well, okay, so go ahead, Ms. Dean, I just want to talk real quick after that, please.
So
With
we
the
got the
solution.
we got the East Main Street MassWorks project for him last year.
Yep,
Making that separate from what we're matching for we had to have skin in the game.
Right.
And so we can't spend more money on that water upgrade from
Okay.
MassWorks.
Right.
Well, whatever.
Because the state has said, no, it can't come from a state grant, it has to be local money. So that's
right,
not
for the
an
skin of the
option.
game, we did the permits for the one, and then we're
Can we
doing
expand it?
for the, so can I just make a suggestion, because obviously this is just discussion, and we're trying to figure out what it all, I think we're all on the right part. Can we do a little, I can help with the research a little bit and see what we've got, maybe pull the minutes from back then, because I think it was 2018, if not late 2017, when this was all discussed. There was an issue with 21E about the waterway and all that kind of stuff, and who was going to sign it. I thought it was clean. It was there was a big argument between Ron and the town council, and it went back and forth.
Correct.
So I remember it specifically, and it was another complaint was because it was a small area. But he would maintain it, but we would get this stuff done. We had, I think, a covenant came out of that. Part of it, I would say, a few years later. No, 2019 was the covenant period of time where there was an agreement with the police would patrol, which they already patrol the area, but there's a couple other things. But as long as the public utilize it, because it is all part of his master plan, their master plan. So I just wouldn't have a problem with. Is there's a timeline, Ms. Dean, on this? Like, we got to get this thing done, or yeah.
So we've already missed that window when we could submit 5 expressions of interest. Now it's down to, you're still welcome to submit 2 expressions of interest by mid-March, or you can submit for 2 projects. They give you feedback by mid-March, and then the application's due at the beginning of June. And if I could just,
Yeah.
while I have your ear, follow up on Marquette's comment about let it be the Honorable Counselor Marquette.
And that's on tape, by the way.
Yes,
Go ahead.
That's all right, Dean.
Go ahead, Ms.
The
Dean.
idea of us telling them what we want, I just think about what we just went through last year where I begged for those wrought iron fences and that fell flat. And I felt like that wasn't asking for much. So it's, I don't know how easy it is for us to insert in their master plan what we want. Would have to really be a very organized effort.
Well, all we can do is ask.
And just to make sure we're clear on what subjects we're talking about, this one sounds like it's not anything about the waterfront. It sounds like it is strictly the roads, curbing, pedestrian crossings, landscaping, and street lighting, bike paths, signage, and.
Is he preparing for the other affordable housing? That may go in there.
Well, he's already built that. So.
No, he hasn't been approved for the second one.
It hasn't been approved as a second.
Councilor Marquetti.
Just as a follow-up, if, let's say we decided we wanted to go for that money, but we wanted to use it somewhere else, could we do that?
I don't know if we could, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the way MassWorks works is it's through the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. All the projects have to hinge on business, economic development. Is this going to trigger investment from a large investor? He talks about how this project is in excess of $105 million. The state knows that he's spent more here than we've ever seen, and so they understand that, you know, I think they want to approve his projects, but to your point, you know, the only other MassWorks projects you had in town were the one last year related to him, and then the one before that, the United Lens, and I don't know of others in town.
I thought we were gonna do a water walk,
So
river walk.
I think that's all part of the
It's
master
all part of the
plan.
master plan.
Not at the AO, down by, behind,
My taxes.
by Tassie's.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, that's different, so
That's
we
how-
can
that's-
use it on that,
yes.
no?
Don't you remember that? That was in
That was the, what,
redevelopment.
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, you're right, a long time ago, yeah, yeah, right.
So, if I may, through
Yeah.
yes, that was a redevelopment authority project, and I added it to my capital plan this year to make sure that it's on our radar screen in planning documents for 2027 if the town wanted to go forward with something like that. But could you make the argument that that river park would trigger economic development, would trigger a business making investment, and not just the ideal of, you know, oh, a park would bring people in, like we kind of, it's kind of like with the rail trail, we had to say, Center of Hope's bringing in an ice cream shop, 12 Crane is gonna reinvigorate itself. You know, it has to be real, tangible investment.
But isn't that right along the rail trail that you wanna build?
Then to the side, right on the north side of it, right?
I don't know that I could make that argument.
I don't know what business is over there to find the definition of it.
If
But
you- If you think this is the best way, then that's all right.
Why don't we, so they got until mid-March, you said?
You gotta make an application and formulate in June, and you have to have the ideas in by mid-March.
Do you think there's enough here? Do you think there's enough here to be able to justify putting in this MassWorks grant, basically the scope of work that she's provided?
I would hope, again, based on the last expression of interest, that they
Yeah.
have a much more fleshed out idea.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So-
based on what they provided, we're taking their word.
I'll call Chip tomorrow.
Or can he come to one of your meetings?
It's
Huh?
just these 2 pages.
Can
Can
they
Chip-
come to one of your meetings?
Yeah, I think this is what we'll have to do, and we can pull up a P&D really quick, you know, next, I'll work with Ms. Dean on that and try to work something out there.
Or at the very least, sit with you and say, this is what we're doing with this money.
Well, I think the next time we come, I think we'd have a better idea. So why don't we just have a conversation behind and see what we can do?
And you'll research the other ideas that seem to be mixed up here.
Yeah, but I also like, I understand where Counselor Marquetti is also coming from, going, how can we work together on this whole issue to see what the town would like to put into, if they're willing to, and I will be honest with you, they have worked with us. I feel the same way about the defense, but they have worked with us in the past, so I'll call Mr. Norton tomorrow and have a conversation with them and see what we can do, and then I'll call you tomorrow, how's that? There you go.
So what are you gonna do now?
Now, we'll just, if there's nothing to really do about it, we'll just bring it back to another meeting at the next one.
There was a motion made, or you just want?
Yeah, let me reset that, yeah. Can you guys take it back a
Rescind the
minute?
motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike, for reminding me.
No problem.
You're the man. All right, motion to adjourn.
No. I don't
All those
know.
in favor?
Somebody has something to say?
They,
Oh,
I
are you
don't know if
serious?
this is planning and development, but it's dealing with the AO project.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was amazed to see the amount of people coming out of that roadway, taking left-hand turns into Main Street.
It's a sign, yeah.
So I drove into the project, and it's very easily missed, the sign that says an arrow with no left turns. So I think, I don't know if it's planning and development, I don't know if it's your office, I don't know if it's somebody, but I think signage needs to be
Probably DPW.
incorporated in the planning and development part of things when they bring projects, because like I say, I purposely went in there. I took a right-hand turn into the project, which you're not supposed to,
You want it on the K Street?
onto K Street. And then I parked it, 'cause we were looking at the places and stuff, and then I sat there and I literally watched at least 6 people come out of that complex from the buses and take left-hand turns heading towards Dudley. And it was like, oh my God, I can't believe, but then when I went up to the intersection there to see what to go out, there it was, no left turns, but it's only a sign this big, that's all I noticed.
I'll take a drive over there and take a look.
Maybe a flashy sign.
I'll
Yeah,
bring it up. Absolutely.
Isn't the plan to put a light
He was
there
supposed to.
eventually?
There's a flashing light. Was there? Not it was a flashing light or a pot.
I don't know that it's actually in the plan.
There used to be a light over there.
Yeah.
Red, green, and yellow.
All right, motion adjourned. We already got the first, second. All those in favor? Have a good night, guys.